Close your eyes. Imagine waking in a room of cold air and dim light, your body already tired before morning begins. Outside, frost clings to the world and every movement is slow, deliberate, necessary. This is life in the medieval world, not the stories, not the myths, but the quiet struggle of simply existing. Tonight, we drift back to feel the weight of one day you might not survive. The night opens slowly like a heavy wooden door, turning on ancient hinges, and beyond it waits a world that is both familiar and impossibly distant. A world where the air itself feels thicker, slower, older, where the stars hang lower and the silence hums with the quiet labor of 1,000 small lives. This is the world you would step into if you somehow awoke one morning in the Middle Ages, barefoot blinking. Your mind full of modern thoughts that no one around you could possibly understand, your body unprepared for what awaited it. The light would be the first thing to strike you, not the soft electric glow you know, but the raw gold of firelight, uneven and living, twisting across stone. Walls and wooden beams revealing a place that is as beautiful as it is unforgiving. The smell would follow, dense and layered, smoke from hearth fires. Wet earth, the sour tang of animals, the sharp bite of iron, the faint sweetness of hay, and something else, human, warm, constant, would take only a moment to realize that you are far from the clean edges of the world you came from. Here, everything breathes, sweats, rots, and endures. You might wake in a small hut, the ceiling low, the air cool with morning, the sound of someone already moving outside, a steady rhythm of wood being split or water being carried. The bed, if you could call it that, would be a straw mattress bound with twine, covered with a rough blanket that smells faintly of smoke and skin. When you sit up, dust rises in the slanting light like 1,000 golden ghosts. Your breath fogs in the air. You are alive but barely comfortable. Hunger comes quickly here, so does cold. You would pull on clothes, of course, wool or linen, thick and itchy, their fibers stiff with the residue of lye soap. The fabric scratches at your skin, reminding you that softness is a luxury you no longer possess. There is no glass in the window, only shutters. Outside, the world waits gray, damp, endless. You step into it, and the ground greets you with mud. The village is small, a cluster of thatched roofs crouched against the wind. The smoke from a dozen fires rises into the cold sky in thin, uncertain columns. People are already at work, their movements purposeful, efficient. No one looks idle. No one can afford to be. You watch as a woman bends over a tub, scrubbing clothes in cold water with a bundle of herbs, her hands red and raw. A man guides an ox through the fields, the animal's breath steaming in the air. Children chase a dog through the mud, laughing barefoot despite the chill. You think about shoes, about warmth, about comfort, and realize how much of your life was spent inside walls that kept the world out. Here, there are no walls thick enough, no warmth deep enough. Every day is a negotiation with survival. You are hungry already, and the day has barely begun. Breakfast, if it comes, will be a crust of bread, maybe dipped in a little broth or ale. The bread is dense and dark, heavy with grains that grind between your teeth like sand. The taste is simple, almost bland, but it fills you enough to move forward. There is no coffee, no sugar, no luxury of choice. The day is a rhythm that has no need for comfort, only endurance. You join the others in their work, though your hands are soft, your muscles uncertain. The tools are heavy and unkind, the ground unyielding. Every action feels slower, heavier. The hours stretch, sweat freezes on your neck. Your breath comes out in clouds. There is no music here except the rhythm of labor, the creak of wood, the crack of a whip, the soft muttering of prayers you cannot follow. You are surrounded by people, yet you feel profoundly alone. By midday, the sky is a pale wash of color, the sun weak and distant. You stop to drink water from a wooden cup, its rim chipped and rough. The water's cold, maybe a little cloudy, and you drink it anyway. Your stomach turns, unused to such things. You wipe your mouth and keep moving. There is no room for hesitation. The village lives by the clock of necessity, not by hours, but by hunger, by weather, by the slow, endless turning of the seasons. You think about time, about how quiet it feels here. There are no machines, no hum, no constant noise to remind you that you exist. Only wind and fire and voices, and sometimes not even those. The afternoon drags, and you begin to feel the ache in your body. Every joint protests, every muscle burns. You are learning what it means to exist without convenience, without the quiet cushioning of modern life. You begin to understand how much effort survival demands. Every piece of bread, every warm fire, every roof overhead is the result of someone's exhaustion. You look around and realize that no one here dreams of wealth or fame. They dream of full bellies, of mild winters, of children who survive. The simplicity of it stings you, not because it is cruel, but because it is pure. There is no distraction, no illusion of ease. B. The world is honest here, and its honesty hurts. Evening comes like a slow collapse. The light fades, and the sky turns the color of ash. You return to the small hut, your body trembling with fatigue. The fire is lit again, its glow flickering against the walls. The air smells of stew thin, mostly cabbage, maybe a bone for flavor. You sit close, letting the heat crawl into your fingers. Someone beside you hums a song, low and wordless. Outside, the village darkens. Dogs bark. The night deepens. You feel every breath of wind slip through the cracks in the wall. There is no real silence here, only the sounds of life enduring. The crackle of fire, the shifting of straw, the distant murmur of voices saying goodnight. You lie down again on your straw bed, your body sore, your skin dry, your thoughts blurred. The darkness feels heavier now, almost alive. You can hear the river nearby, the occasional creak of wood as the wind presses against the hut. Somewhere far off, an owl calls. The air is cold, but your body has learned to accept it. You close your eyes, but sleep does not come easily. The smell, the noise, the ache, all of it keeps you awake. You think about how much of your world depended on comfort, on distance from nature, on control. Here, there is none. You are not above the world. You are inside it. And it is vast, indifferent, eternal. When sleep finally finds you, it feels less like rest and more like surrender. You dream not of modern things, but of simple ones: firelight, bread, the sound of rain. You wake before dawn to the same gray light, the same damp air. Another day begins, and already you feel it pressing down, endless and inevitable. You realize that you would not last long here, not because the people are cruel or the world is evil, but because it demands everything. It demands strength without rest, courage without reward, faith without promise. It demands your body, your time, your surrender. The Middle Ages were not built for comfort. They were built for endurance, for patience, for quiet resilience. The people here do not know luxury, but they know meaning, the kind that comes from simply surviving another day. You admire them even as your own strength fades. The firelight dances across their faces, and for a moment, you understand. To live here is to exist in rhythm with the earth itself, to wake and sleep by its rules, to endure its moods, to accept its silence. You would not last a day, but they would last a lifetime. The morning arrives not with alarm or sunlight, but with sound, the low murmur of movement. Boots on dirt, the distant clang of metal against metal, the world already alive long before you are ready for it. And when you open your eyes, the air feels colder than before, damp from the fog that clings to everything like breath on glass. The light is faint, a dull gray that seeps through the shutters, soft enough to make the corners of the room dissolve into shadow, and you lie there for a moment trying to remember what day it is. Before realizing that here days are not counted in names or numbers, only in tasks and weather and hunger, you sit up, bones protesting, muscles stiff from yesterday's work, and the straw beneath you rustles, a whisper of dry life in a place that feels endlessly wet. Someone opens the door and the cold rushes in, biting, clean in a way that almost hurts, smelling of smoke, mud, and the faint sweetness of something cooking, maybe porridge, thin, warm, the kind that doesn't fill but comforts. You pull on your clothes again, the same rough wool, heavy, and coarse, carrying the memory of yesterday's sweat, and step outside into the breath of the medieval morning. The fog rolls low over the fields, swallowing the edges of the world, and everything feels muted, distant, as if the land itself is still half asleep. You can hear the slow creak of cartwheels, the call of a rooster, the chatter of a few voices somewhere unseen. The village looks older in this light, smaller too, as if the mist has taken some of its weight away. The air feels thick, and every sound, footsteps, the splash of water, a cough seems to hang in it longer than it should. You start walking, careful not to slip in the mud, and the earth grips your boots, reluctant to let you go. Somewhere nearby, a blacksmith begins his day, the hammer's ring cutting clean through the fog. The rhythm is steady, patient like a heart. You follow it, drawn to its certainty. The forge is small, dark, alive with orange light. Sparks jump in the air like fireflies trapped in a storm. The heat is overwhelming, but it's the kind of warmth that reminds you what cold really means. The blacksmith barely looks up as you approach, his face hidden behind soot and sweat, his arms moving with the slow power of someone who has done the same thing every day of his life. You watch the metal glow, the hammer rise and fall, the shape emerging in quiet defiance of time. It's a sword, maybe, or a horseshoe, or just a piece of iron that will soon be something useful. You think of how much beauty can come from necessity, how much skill is born not from passion but from survival. The blacksmith doesn't talk much. There's no need to. The fire speaks for him, loud, ancient, alive. You wander on through the winding dirt paths, past wooden fences and thatched roofs that glisten with dew. Chickens scatter at your feet. A dog barks once and then loses interest. There is no rush here, but there is no pause either. Life flows like a quiet river, steady, constant, without the illusion of choice. You reach the edge of the village, where fields stretch out, divided by low hedges and the occasional tree standing alone, its branches bare against the sky. Men and women move through the fields, their motions deliberate, their faces unreadable. You stand there, watching, realizing that in this world even the landscape works harder than you ever have. Every hill, every fence, every furrow is a memory of hands and time. The air begins to clear as the sun rises higher, weak but determined. You can finally see the outline of something in the distance, a tower, maybe stone, tall and pale against the horizon, castle, or the ghost of one. You start walking toward it, drawn by curiosity, or maybe by the strange pull of something that doesn't quite belong to this village. The road is uneven, lined with puddles, and you walk slowly, careful not to twist an ankle. The closer you get, the more the structure reveals itself. A castle indeed, though smaller than the stories would have you believe, not the grand fortress of legends, but something more human, more weary. The walls are rough, patched in places, streaked with moss. The gate stands open, guarded by two men who look more tired than alert. You pass them quietly, and they barely nod. Inside, the courtyard smells of horses and hay and wet stone. The sound of hooves echoes softly. You see people moving about, servants carrying buckets, stable boys brushing down horses, a woman with a basket of linens. The castle feels alive in a way that the village does not. But it's not luxury you sense here, it's hierarchy. Everything has an order, a rhythm built on silence and obedience. You feel eyes on you, not curious, but measuring. A man in a worn leather tunic glances your way, says nothing, and continues hauling sacks of grain. You move through the courtyard, drawn toward the sound of laughter, faint but distinct, coming from somewhere inside the stone halls. You step through a doorway, the air suddenly cooler again, the light dim. The laughter fades as your eyes adjust. Inside, it smells of wood smoke, wine, and damp stone. A fire burns low in a massive hearth, its flames licking at logs that hiss and crack. The floor is rough underfoot, the walls hung with old tapestries that flutter slightly when the wind sneaks in. See a long table strewn with the remains of a meal, bones, crusts of bread, a spill of dark liquid that might be ale. The sound of boots on stone echoes from another room, followed by a woman's voice, sharp and clear. You can't make out the words, but the tone is unmistakable. Command. Act. You peek through the archway and see her, a noblewoman perhaps, standing by the window, her gown heavy and layered, her hair braided tight. Her hands are clean, her posture perfect. She turns slightly, and for a moment, you catch her eyes. They are steady, unreadable, and in that look is something ancient, not cruelty, not warmth, just distance. You realize that even here, within walls meant to protect, the world is just as harsh, only gilded differently. You step back. quietly leaving her to her world, and find yourself wandering through the corridors. The air feels colder the deeper you go. You pass narrow windows that let in slivers of pale light, staircases that spiral up into shadow, doors that lead to rooms you will never see. Somewhere someone plays a faint melody on a lute, and it floats through the air like dust, soft, sad, haunting. You follow it without meaning to, until it fades completely, swallowed by the stone. You stop, realizing that silence here feels heavier than in the village. Not peaceful, but expectant, as if the castle itself is listening. When you finally step outside again, the light feels blinding. The afternoon has burned away the fog, revealing a sky that is too wide to open. The world stretches endlessly in every direction. Fields, forests, the faint line of a river glinting in the distance. You take a deep breath and the air tastes of ash and life. You start walking back toward the village, feeling smaller than before. The castle behind you stands silent, a reminder of how little separates the powerful from the powerless in this world. Just a few walls, a little warmth, a little luck. By the time you return, the sun has begun to sink. The village glows with the last light of the day, roofs golden, shadows long. Smoke rises again from chimneys, twisting lazily into the air. People move slower now, their work nearly done. You sit near the well, your body aching in ways you didn't know it could. A child passes you, carrying a bundle of sticks too big for their small arms. They smile briefly, then vanish into a doorway. You watch them go and wonder what kind of life waits for them. How many winters they will see. How many mornings like this they will wake to. As night falls, the cold deepens, creeping through layers of fabric, through skin, through bone. You huddle near the fire again, the same one as before, though it feels smaller now, the flames less generous. The stew tonight is thin, the bread harder. You eat in silence, the sound of the wind outside like a living thing pressing against the walls. Someone laughs softly, tiredly. Someone else hums a tune that you think you've heard before, though maybe you've just imagined it. The fire pops, and the room flickers. You think about the castle, about the village, about how everything here, from the smallest hut to the tallest tower, is built on the same truth: survival. There is no ease, no comfort, no freedom from the cycle of hunger and labor. Yet there is beauty in it, a kind of stillness that your world has forgotten. You feel it now, in the rhythm of the wind, in the weight of the silence, in the faces around the fire. You would not last a day here, not really, not with your soft hands and your restless mind. But for one night, you can almost believe you belong. Outside, the stars begin to appear, slow and patient, one by one, like old eyes opening. The air smells of wood smoke and frost. The earth sleeps, and somewhere in the distance, the blacksmith's hammer rings once more, steady, certain, eternal. Night has fully settled now, and the world beyond the fire feels impossibly large. Stretching past the edge of sight into blackness so thick it feels alive, the kind of darkness that breathes with you. Moves when you move, watches when you dare to look back at it, the kind of dark that the medieval world knows too well. 'Cause here, night is not just a time, it is a force, a presence, a thing with weight and sound and shape. Pressing close against the walls of every hut, every stable, every heart that beats within this narrow band of flickering light. The fire is small but stubborn, its glow licking the rough wood of the walls. Painting faces in trembling amber, shadows shifting like ghosts behind every breath. The people around you speak in low voices, their words soft and rounded, the kind of talk that means little and everything at once. A name, a wish, a worry all whispered into the air, as though the night itself might carry them away if you were not careful. Outside, the wind rises, brushing against the thatch like a hand dragging its fingers through dry grass, and every so often a dog barks, far away, the sound long and lonely. You close your eyes for a moment listening, and it feels as though time has stopped, as if the world has folded itself inward to this small room and its handful of people clinging to warmth, because in the medieval night there is no comfort beyond the reach of fire, no promise of safety once the light fades. The darkness is a living thing, and beyond it lie the woods, vast and unknowable, where wolves roam and the wind moans through the trees like the voices of the forgotten. You think about how fragile it all feels, the thin walls, the flicker of flame, the trembling hands that feed it. Every sound outside, a rustle, a creak, the snap of a branch, feels like a reminder of how close the wild truly is. You imagine walking out there, into the cold, the mud sucking at your boots, your breath visible in the air, the path vanishing behind you, and the thought alone sends a quiet shiver through you. But not everyone sleeps tonight. Somewhere beyond the village, in the faint light of the moon, others are awake. Guards patrolling the edges of a nearby estate, farmers watching for thieves, travelers huddled under wagons on the road, praying for morning to come faster. The medieval world never truly sleeps, because even dreams here must bow to survival. You think of those travelers, their bodies curled under thin blankets, horses tied close, every sound around them a possible danger. You imagine their fire burning low, their faces hidden, their breath fogging the air. Somewhere one of them opens their eyes to check the sky. The stars are cold and bright, scattered like salt across black velvet, indifferent, eternal. Back in the village, someone stirs the fire, sending a shower of sparks spiraling upward, small stars of their own, lost almost as soon as they appear. The flames steady, and the light reveals faces half asleep, the kind of exhaustion that comes from endless labor, not from choice, but from life itself. The woman beside you yawns, her eyes heavy but alert, as though even rest must be earned, and you realize how strange it is to think of sleep as a luxury. Here it's not about comfort, it's about survival, a way to reclaim strength from the day that took too much. The floor beneath you is hard, the air cold, but exhaustion softens everything. When you finally lie down, you can feel every sound as vibration, the crackle of fire, the sigh of wind, the faint drip of water from somewhere unseen. You close your eyes, and for a while it's easy to pretend you belong here, that this life is yours, that the simplicity of it could be enough. Dreams in this world are strange. They blur the line between memory and myth. You dream of torchlight flickering across stone, of laughter echoing in the distance, of hands rough with callus, of a voice calling your name in a language you don't quite understand. When you wake, the fire is only embers now, a soft red glow breathing weakly in the dark. The room is silent but not empty. The presence of others, asleep, gives it shape. The air feels colder, the silence thicker, and somewhere outside, the first bird calls, hesitant.
Ow!
As though unsure if morning truly intends to come. You rise slowly, every movement loud in the stillness. The door creaks open, and the cold air greets you like a slap. Sharp, clean, endless. The sky is not yet light, but there is a hint of silver in the east, a thin line that promises dawn. The world feels suspended, balanced between night and day, between danger and labor. You walk toward the well, your breath misting before you, and the ground crunches underfoot, frozen in patches. The well stands silent, a dark circle of stillness. When you draw water, the rope creaks, the bucket splashes, the sound impossibly loud in the quiet. The water is cold, biting your fingers, but it feels alive, pure, unfiltered by time. You drink, and it shocks you awake in a way no modern comfort could. By the time the first real light touches the village, people are already moving. Smoke rises again from chimneys, soft and slow. The sky blooms pale, revealing the shape of the land, the low huts, the scattered trees, the muddy paths that wind like veins through it all. You watch as figures emerge from doorways, yawning, stretching, faces blank with the repetition of routine. The same chores, the same hunger, the same day repeated under different weather. And yet, there's a rhythm to it that feels eternal. The medieval world has no beginning and no end, just a continuous breath, drawn and released by those who live within it. You hear the first bell ring from somewhere, maybe the church, maybe the manor, a dull, heavy sound that rolls across the fields. It marks nothing you'd recognize, not time in your sense, but duty. People start to move faster. The smell of smoke thickens, mixed with bread baking somewhere, faint, but real. The kind of scent that makes the air feel warmer, even when it's not. You walk toward it, drawn like a moth, and find yourself near the small oven that serves the village. A woman stands there, her hands white with flour, her face streaked with soot, her eyes focused on the task before her. The bread she makes will feed many, but she will taste little of it herself. You watch as she works, not because it's remarkable, but because it isn't. Every motion is a ritual, passed down and perfected by repetition. You realize that here everything is labor, and labor is life. As the morning grows, so does the noise. The hammering starts again, the calls, the bleating of goats, the murmur of voices layering one over another until the silence of the night feels like something imagined. You wander toward the edge of the village, where the path turns toward the forest. The trees stand dark and patient, ancient sentinels of a world older than any wall or crown. A few men are heading that way, with axes slung over their shoulders, their breath steaming, their eyes low. The forest gives, but it also takes. Every piece of wood that warms a home comes with the risk of vanishing into those shadows that never end. You stop where the path begins to darken, and for a moment, you feel the temptation to step in, to lose yourself completely, to walk until the world disappears. But you turn away, back toward the smoke, the sound, the fragile comfort of human noise. Later, the day grows brighter, but never truly warm. The sun is thin here, filtered by cloud and distance. You pass through the fields again, watching as people bend low to the earth, their movements small, almost reverent. There is no time for thought here, no space for reflection. Every gesture has purpose: pull, lift, gather, repeat. You realize watching them that you've spent your life surrounded by choices, while here, choice itself is a luxury. Survival does not ask what you want, it only asks what you can give. The realization settles into you like cold water. At midday, you hear laughter again, not joy, exactly, but the brittle kind that cracks the weight of exhaustion. Children play near the well, their feet muddy, their shouts echoing against the stone. You watch them, and for a brief moment, the world feels lighter, the sound of innocence threading through the heaviness like sunlight breaking through clouds. One of them stops to look at you, eyes curious but unafraid, then runs off again, their laughter fading into the hum of the day. You smile without meaning to, but it's a tired smile, born of the strange ache of seeing hope where none should survive. The afternoon stretches long. The sky begins to dim before you realize it, the light turning gold. And then gray, the air thickening again, with the scent of smoke and damp. You feel it in your bones, the endless cycle, the return to cold, to dark, to hunger. By the time the sun disappears, the village has retreated once more into itself. Fires burn behind every window, faint and flickering, small stars scattered across the land. You sit outside for a while, watching the last light fade from the sky, the world exhaling another day. There is a strange peace in it, the acceptance that tomorrow will be the same, that the struggle itself is the rhythm of life. You would not last here, not for long, not with your need for comfort, for light, for softness. But for now, in the quiet between heartbeats, with the scent of smoke and earth and time itself lingering in the air, you can almost believe you could. The days blend together until time itself loses its edge, each morning rising like the last, each night folding over the same small world of smoke and silence. And yet, beneath the rhythm of work and hunger, there is something uneasy, something that stirs beneath the surface like a ripple in still water. Because in the medieval world, peace is never more than a fragile illusion, a moment between storms, a breath between sickness and sorrow, and even as the village hums with its quiet routines, there is a tension in the air, faint but growing, heaviness that creeps into conversation and settles in the bones like cold. It begins, as it always does, with whispers. Someone falls ill, a cough that doesn't fade, a fever that burns too long, and another. The villagers don't look at each other the same way. Eyes linger, suspicion sharpens, and fear begins to take shape. It is not the modern fear, you know, quick and bright and filled with words. It is older, slower, thicker, like smoke that seeps under doors and fills every breath. The healer comes, a woman whose hands smell of herbs and ash, her face lined with years and silence. She moves from home to home, carrying her bundle of dried plants and whispered prayers, her presence both comfort and omen. When she enters a room, people fall quiet. You watch her once, from the doorway, as she kneels beside a child whose breath comes shallow and uneven, pressing a damp cloth to their forehead, her lips moving in a murmur too soft to catch. The air in the room feels still, charged, as though even the fire is holding its breath. She leaves behind her small cures, bitter teas, bundles of thyme and sage, instructions to rest, but you can see in her eyes that rest will not be enough. Death walks close here, uninvited but always expected, and when he comes, no one asks why. Outside, the wind carries the smell of smoke and sickness. You see doors marked with strange signs, chalked symbols, circles meant to protect or ward away what cannot be seen. The priest moves through the village too, his robes heavy, his voice low, offering words instead of cures. And though the people listen, they do not always believe. Belief in this world is layered, tangled between faith and fear, between what the church says and what the land remembers. You hear stories of curses, of bad air, of sins too heavy to be forgiven, and you realize that here, explanation is not about truth. It is about survival of the mind. When the world becomes too cruel, reason gives way to ritual. Fires are burned at crossroads to cleanse the air. Bells are rung to scare away unseen spirits. And somewhere in the distance, someone always weeps. You feel it one night, that heaviness, that strange stillness before something ends. The fire burns low, its light too weak to chase away the shadows gathering in the corners. Someone coughs in the dark, a long tearing sound that seems to pull the air out of the room. The others turn their heads but say nothing. Silence is a language here, and fear is its grammar. You stare into the flames until your eyes blur, the shapes twisting and dancing until they no longer look like fire at all, but like memories flickering and fading. When sleep finally comes, it brings no comfort. You dream of empty roads, of pale faces, of the sound of bells echoing over the fields. Morning comes slow, heavy with fog, the kind that hides more than it reveals. You step outside, and the world feels different, muted, as though the air itself is holding a secret. A cart rolls past, covered with rough cloth. No one looks directly at it. The smell that follows is unmistakable, thick and sour, the scent of decay and lime. A man walks behind it, muttering a prayer under his breath. No one stops him. The village exhales as one, quietly, and then pretends to keep living. This is how death is met here, not with shock, but with weariness, as if it were just another chore to be done before sunset. You watch. As the healer burns herbs in the square, smoke curling into the sky, thick and fragrant, she says it will purify the air, though no one asks if she truly believes it. People gather around her, their faces drawn and pale, their eyes searching the smoke for something unseen. You can feel their fear like heat, invisible but suffocating. The world feels smaller now, tighter, as though even the walls are leaning inward. You realize that in this place, death is not a visitor, it is a neighbor, and everyone knows its name. By evening, the fog has deepened. The light fades quickly, swallowed by the gray, and with it comes the sound of distant bells, slow, mournful, unhurried. You count them without meaning to, each one echoing long after the next begins. The villagers stop what they're doing, heads bowed. You follow their gaze and see the small procession moving through the path beyond the fields, its torches glowing dimly through the mist. The air smells of earth and fire and loss. You don't know who has been taken this time, but it hardly matters. Here, grief is shared like bread, divided evenly among those who remain. That night, the fire burns hotter than usual, as though defying the cold. People sit closer, speaking more softly. Someone tells a story, not of heroes or kings, but of omens. Of how the wolves howl louder before a death. Of how candles flicker when a soul passes. You listen, not because you believe, but because the voice telling it feels steady, and steadiness is rare here. Outside, the wind rises, carrying the smell of rain. The roof creaks. The world feels as if it might come apart at the seams, and yet it holds, somehow, the same way it always has. In the following days, the sickness wanes, leaving behind empty chairs, silent rooms, eyes that no longer meet. The healer walks slower now. The priest speaks softer. The world resumes its rhythm, but it feels thinner, fragile, like a thread stretched too far. You feel it in yourself too, that knowledge that everything here, every breath, every beat of life, is borrowed. You look around and see how the people endure, not because they are strong, but because they must. There is no other choice. Yet even in the shadow of death, life persists. Fields are tended again. The forge glows once more. Children laugh, quieter than before, but still laugh. The air, though cold, smells clean. You walk through the village one morning and see the light catching on the dew, tiny droplets shining like glass. The beauty of it hurts. You realize that in this world, beauty and suffering are not opposites. They are the same thing, born from the same soil. To live here is to carry both, always. As dusk returns, you walk to the edge of the fields, where the forest begins. The trees stand silent, their branches black against the dying light. The sky burns faintly pink, fading into gray. You can see the distant flicker of torches as the villagers begin their nightly rituals again. The rhythm of survival written into every movement. The cold settles around you like a cloak. You breathe in the smell of earth and smoke and life, and for a moment, you understand this world was never meant to be kind, but it is honest. There is no illusion here, no comfort, no escape from the truth of what it means to exist. You would not last a day, not truly, not without your walls and warmth and the illusion of control. But in this moment, standing between dusk and dark, you feel the strange, quiet power of those who did, and somehow that feels eternal. Night, in the medieval world, is not simply the absence of light. It is a living thing, vast and breathing, spreading through every crack and corner, filling the air with something heavy and watchful, something that listens. When the sun falls behind the hills, the last slant of gold fading into blue, everything changes. Sounds, the hammer of the blacksmith, the bleating of goats, the chatter of women at the well, they fade as though swallowed by a slow tide, and what replaces them is softer, stranger. The whisper of wind against thatched roofs, the rustle of something unseen in the grass, the far-off bark of a dog that stops too soon. The night has its own language, and it is one of patience, of waiting. You feel it the moment it arrives, the way the air cools suddenly, the way your breath seems louder, the way every small flame becomes a shield against something vast and invisible. There are no lanterns lining the paths, no glow from distant windows, only the stars, cold and far, like tiny holes poked through a great black cloth. To live in this world is to understand darkness not as danger but as fact, not as something to fight, but something to endure. You sit by the fire, watching the light crawl across the wooden walls, the shadows stretching long and uncertain. The others sit near you, their faces soft in the glow, their eyes distant. Conversation fades easily here, replaced by the rhythm of the fire, the slow pop of resin, the sigh of wood as it burns down to ember. Outside, the world moves differently, slower, heavier, as though the night itself presses against the earth. Sometimes, if the air is still, you can hear things carry from far away. The sound of hooves on the road, a laugh too faint to tell if it's human, a creak that might be a door or a tree or something else entirely. You tell yourself it's only the wind. Everyone does. It's easier that way. Sleep does not come quickly in this time. The body is tired, but the mind lingers, wary. In the dark, imagination becomes its own creature. The stories told at dusk now circle back, half forgotten but sharp in their edges. The travelers who vanished on the old road, the pale figure seen near the well, the sound of crying that sometimes drifts from the forest when the moon is thin. You don't believe them? Not really. But belief is not what matters here. What matters is that the world feels wide and unknowable, and in that space anything could be true. You lie down on your straw pallet, pull the coarse blanket over your shoulders, and listen. Every creak, every shift of the house settling feels close, personal. The walls do not keep the night out. They only make it quieter. The animals sense it too. The dog at the door lifts its head, ears twitching, growling low, then settling again. The chickens are silent. Even the horses, usually restless, stand still in their stalls. It is as though the whole village is holding its breath. Somewhere far off an owl calls, long and mournful. You count the notes without realizing it, the sound falling into you like drops of cold water. And then silence again, long, thick, unbroken. Sometimes people light small candles at the window, not to see, but to be seen, a signal to the night that they are still here, still alive. You watch the faint glow of your neighbor's cottage across the lane, a tiny point of trembling light, fragile and defiant. The flame dances as if uncertain, flickers once, then steadies. It comforts you, though you would never say so aloud. Comfort in this time is rare and quiet. It comes not from warmth or safety, but from endurance. From knowing that you can sit through the darkness and still breathe when morning comes. But the night does not let go easily. Hours stretch long, the air thick and still. You drift between waking and dreaming, between memory and imagination. In your half-sleep, the boundaries blur. The creak of a door becomes a whisper. The flicker of a shadow becomes a figure. Time loses its edges. You see faces that are not there, hear voices that belong to no one. It is not madness. It is the way the mind protects itself from the vastness of silence. To live here is to make peace with illusion, to accept that sometimes the unreal is kinder than the truth. There are nights when the mist rolls in, soft and endless, swallowing everything it touches. You can't tell where the ground ends and the air begins. The village disappears, reduced to the sound of dripping water and the faint glow of a few scattered fires. It feels like being inside a dream, or perhaps outside of one. You walk through it once, your hands stretched out in front of you, the damp air clinging to your skin, and for a moment, you could almost believe the world has ended, that all that remains is this fog, this breath, this endless in-between. When you finally see the faint shape of your home again, it feels like waking. You step inside, the warmth of the fire startling after the cold, and you understand why people here do not wander far after dark. The night is not cruel, it is simply larger than you. And yet, not all is fear. There are moments of quiet beauty too, found only in the dark. The way the stars appear brighter here, sharp and endless, the way the air smells of wood and frost, the way the fire paints gold across a familiar face. You see the old man across the hearth smile faintly as he hums a tune too old to remember the words to, the sound low and steady. A child asleep nearby turns, mumbling something in a dream. The dog sighs and curls closer to the warmth. It is not peace, not really, but it is something like it, the closest this world can come. When dawn finally comes, it does not burst, it seeps. The darkness does not flee, but fades slowly, reluctantly. The first light is gray, soft, hesitant, touching the roofs and fields like a hand that isn't sure it's welcome. You step outside, eyes stinging from the cold, and see the world waking up in silence. The mist still clings to the ground. The air smells of wet earth and smoke, and the sky glows pale behind the trees. A rooster calls, distant and lonely. Somewhere a door creaks open. The world begins again. You breathe in, and the breath feels different, lighter somehow, though nothing has changed. The fear of the night lingers, but so does its strange calm. You survived another dark. It is enough. Later, when you walk through the village, you notice small signs of the night's quiet battles, the candle burned down to wax, the door barred from within, the footprints leading nowhere. Life here is a constant negotiation with what cannot be controlled, and every morning feels like a victory simply for existing. You pass the well, and hear someone humming as they draw water, a tune that sounds familiar, though you can't place it. For a moment, you think of how fragile everything is, the people, the homes, the routines, and yet how fiercely they cling to it all. The thought is both comforting and heavy. By midday, the sun is up, the fog gone, and it almost feels as if the night was never there. The chatter returns, the hammer strikes metal again, the fields come alive with voices. But when you look at the faces around you, you see it, that faint, shared understanding, that quiet awareness of how icily everything could fade. It's in their eyes, in the way they pause before speaking, in the way they glance at the horizon as though expecting something to come. You realize that in a world this fragile, every sunrise is both a promise and a warning. As the day wears on, you find yourself thinking of the night again, not with fear, but with respect. It is not an enemy, but a truth. It strips away the noise, the pretense, the illusion of control. It leaves only what is real: breath, warmth, heartbeat. In the end, you understand why they fear it and why they need it. The night reminds them that they are small, and somehow that makes the morning sacred. When the sun begins to sink again, you feel it, that same hush returning, that slow closing of the world. The air cools, the shadows lengthen, and you know what comes next. You tend the fire, close the door, light the candle, and settle in for another night in a world that was never built for comfort, but has its own kind of quiet grace. You would not last a day here, but they did, and somehow that feels like enough of a story to fall asleep to. Morning in the medieval world does not begin with noise or energy. It begins with wait, the slow pull of waking before the body is ready, before the light has softened enough to be kind. You open your eyes not because you've rested, but because the world demands it, because there is no room for lingering, no luxury in stillness. The air is cold, always cold, even in summer, the kind of cold that feels older than you, that sits inside the walls and breathes against your skin. You rise from your bed of straw, the stiffness already there, the dull ache that has no name because it never leaves. Your hands close around the coarse edge of your blanket, your feet find the floor, and you begin again. The fire has died sometime in the night, leaving only a faint scent of smoke, the ghost of warmth. You stir the ashes, coax the embers, blow gently until the faint orange pulse returns. It takes patience. Everything takes patience here. The faint glow spreads slowly, shyly, and when the first thin thread of smoke curls upward, you feel that small flicker of relief that does not show on your face. There is no joy here, not the way people imagine it, only brief respites between moments of work. You step outside, and the morning greets you not with beauty, but with cold air that bites softly at your lungs, with ground that is damp and uneven, with a silence that feels more like absence than peace. The world is gray, the color of waiting. The mist hangs low over the fields, the fences glisten with dew, and somewhere in the distance you hear the hollow ring of someone's pail, the dull sound of life beginning again in a place where it never truly stopped. The earth smells of wet soil and iron. The animals stir in the stalls, slow and reluctant, as if they too feel the endlessness of it all. You move because you must. Your body remembers what to do long before your mind catches up. You reach for the bucket, the rope, the tools, the same gestures repeated every day until they stop being choices and become rhythm. That is how survival works here, not through strength or courage, but through rhythm, through the quiet persistence of doing what must be done. There is no conversation in the mornings, only breath and motion. The others move around you like shadows, each one locked inside their own silence, each one carrying the same invisible fatigue. Faces are pale and blank, eyes half closed, hands steady. You hear the faint shuffle of feet in dirt, the creak of wood, the sigh of someone stretching their back, and all of it blends into a soft, low hum that feels almost like the sound of the earth itself breathing. There is a comfort in that sameness, in knowing that no one expects anything beyond endurance. The world does not ask you to be clever or fast or strong, only to keep going. You start with the simplest tasks. The bucket lowered into the well, the rope rough in your hands, the sound of water echoing faintly from below. The weight of it pulls your arms down, the muscles tightening with familiar complaint, and when you lift it, the cold splashes your skin, shocking you fully awake. You pour it into the trough, watch it ripple for a moment, then move on. The animals must be fed, the tools cleaned, the firewood stacked. None of it changes, not today, not tomorrow. The repetition dulls you, softens the edges of thought, until even time itself feels uncertain. You do not think of yesterday or tomorrow, only of the next task, and the one after that. By mid-morning, the faint warmth of the sun begins to break through the mist, but it does little more than paint the air gold. The work continues. You kneel to tie a bundle, your knees pressing into the cold earth, your fingers stiff. The ground smells of everything: soil, straw, sweat, the faint temps of something metallic. You can feel your heartbeat in your fingertips. There is no rush, because there can't be. The body has limits, and here you learn them early. Pushing past them brings no reward, only pain that lingers. You pace yourself, slow, steady, each movement deliberate, as though the world itself might shatter if you move too quickly. When you stop for food, it is not rest. It is another form of motion, slower but the same. The bread is hard, the water cold, the taste simple and empty. You chew without thought, your eyes half on the horizon, half on nothing. Conversation, when it comes, is quiet. Small remarks about the weather, the tools, the livestock, Words serve no purpose but to fill the air. Laughter is rare, and when it happens, it sounds strange, out of place, like something borrowed from another life. You listen to it fade, then return to your rhythm. The hours slide past like shadows. The sun climbs and falls, but you stop noticing it. The light changes, yes, but it means little. You measure time differently here, by the ache in your back, by the hunger that grows and fades, by the wear on your hands. Sometimes, when you pause to wipe your brow, you catch a glimpse of yourself in a puddle or a pane of rough glass and do not recognize the face staring back. It is not age, not really, but erosion, the slow wearing down of everything unnecessary until only what endures remains. The face is thinner, the eyes duller, but there is a steadiness there, a kind of quiet pride that does not need words. By afternoon, the fatigue becomes something else, not sharp, but heavy, spreading through you like water soaking through cloth. Every step feels deliberate. Your breath grows slower. You stop noticing the pain because it is everywhere, because it is normal. When the wind picks up, carrying the smell of smoke and hay, you close your eyes for a moment and just let it move across your skin. The sound of it through the trees is soft and endless, like whispering. You think briefly of rest, but even that thought feels distant, unreal. The work continues until the light begins to dim, and even then it does not truly stop. Evening is not an ending, but a pause. The same motions reversed, animals settled, fire rekindled. The body moves as though separate from thought, guided by instinct and repetition. When at last you sit, the stillness feels strange, like stepping off a moving cart and realizing the world is still spinning. You watch the fire, your hands folded loosely in your lap, the warmth licking at your tired skin. The others sit too, their faces unreadable, their silence thick, but not unfriendly. There is nothing to say. You have all lived the same day, in your own small ways. You know it will happen again tomorrow, and the day after that, and somehow that knowledge brings comfort. There is security in the sameness, in the predictability of fatigue. When the last light fades, and the world outside the door turns black again, you feel the weight of your own body as though it belongs to someone else. You lie down on the same straw bed, the smell of smoke and sweat in the air, the hum of insects somewhere in the dark. Your eyes close before you mean them to. You are too tired to dream, too tired even to think of the morning. The world will turn again without you, the work will wait. Somewhere in the distance, an owl calls, the same slow note as always, and you drift down, not into rest exactly, but into something quieter, deeper, like the earth itself pulling you close. The world of the Middle Ages does not reveal itself to the eye alone. It arrives through every sense at once, heavy and unfiltered, filling the air with a weight that modern life has forgotten. A closeness to the body that cannot be escaped, a constant awareness of where you are, because everything touches you. The smell of smoke woven into your hair, the grit of dust on your tongue, the damp press of wool against your neck. The air here is not clean in the way you imagine it. It is alive, carrying the breath of fire and animals and people, all tangled together. Every place smells like something. The hearth, the earth, the iron, the sweat. The scent of burning oak follows you everywhere, caught in your clothes, clinging to the rough grain of the walls. You inhale, and it's as though the whole world is burning softly, endlessly. Even the cleanest moments are touched by it. The pale light of morning still tastes faintly of ash. But it isn't unpleasant, not really. It is simply the smell of living, the scent of things that refuse to stop. You can hear life before you see it. Sound travels differently here, slower, fuller, unbroken by engines or electricity. It stretches through the air, caught and softened by fog and trees and the damp walls of houses. A hammer in the distance doesn't echo sharply, but rolls like thunder, or voice carries further, though you can never tell who it belongs to. The rhythm of the village is a constant undercurrent. The creak of wooden wheels, the lowing of cattle, the hollow clank of a pail against stone, footsteps on dirt, always footsteps. When the wind shifts, you hear laughter, or something close to it, carried from another street, faint as a memory. And when the day quiets, when the work fades into rest, the silence that follows feels immense, like standing inside the pause between heartbeats. It isn't empty. It's full of small sounds, breathing, fire crackling, wood settling. the faint murmur of someone talking in sleep.
Oh, jeez.
Silence here has texture, and if you listen long enough, you can almost hear time moving.
Ouch.
Finds everything. The world presses back against you constantly, reminding you of itself. The fabric of your tunic scratches faintly against your wrists, the coarse fibers of linen leaving pale marks on your skin. The soles of your feet know every contour of the ground, the uneven boards, the cold stone, the soft dampness of the path after rain.
Ow.
Your hands are never still, and they are never clean. The roughness of rope, the splintered edge of wood, the smooth curve of a clay cup, the warm living heat of an animal's side, all of it leaves its mark. You are shaped by what you touch, and it, in turn, remembers you. The calluses on your palms are maps of repetition, quiet records of everything you've done, and everything you'll do again tomorrow. Even rest has its texture. The straw beneath you rustles when you move, whispering faintly, the blanket heavy and uneven, smelling of wool and smoke. Comfort is not softness here. It is familiarity, the knowledge of what your body expects. Sight is both a gift and a burden. There is beauty in this world, but it is a heavy kind, raw and close. Colors are muted, earthbound browns and grays and greens, the dull red of brick, the pale blue of dawn. Light moves differently here, filtered through smoke and cloud, always changing. Morning light is thin, almost transparent, a cold glow that touches but doesn't warm. Afternoon comes golden and thick, coating everything with the illusion of gentleness. And night consumes it all, not suddenly, but like a slow tide, until the outlines of things dissolve, and the world becomes sound and memory. You learn to see less and feel more. Shadows are everywhere, and sometimes they seem to move, but you stop questioning it. There is no fear in it anymore, only the quiet knowledge that darkness belongs here just as much as light does. When you look up, you see stars so bright they feel close enough to touch, each one sharp, flickering, impossibly far. They do not comfort you, but they steady you. So the sky is reminding you that it has always been there, watching, unchanged. Taste is the most honest sense of all. Food here is not indulgence but necessity. Simple, repetitive, grounding. Bread that cracks beneath your teeth. Soup that tastes faintly of smoke and salt. Water cold from the well. Milk warm and raw. You eat because your body tells you to, not because you crave. Every meal is quiet, almost reverent in its stillness, shared but wordless. Sometimes the taste of the day lingers in your mouth, the dust of the field, the tang of iron from your work, the bitterness of herbs chewed to ease a cough. The tongue remembers long after the moment has passed. There is something intimate about that, something strangely anchoring. But if one sense defines the medieval world, it is not sight or sound or touch, it is closeness. You live close to everything, to the earth, to the weather, to the people around you. There are no barriers, no sterile distances. When it rains on you. When the wind turns cold, it reaches your bones. When someone laughs, you feel it through the walls. When someone cries, you hear it through the silence. Life here is shared endlessly, in sound and scent and warmth. Privacy is a modern invention. Here everything belongs to everyone, even exhaustion. You cannot hide weariness. It lives on your skin, in your movements, in the slow bend of your shoulders. And yet no one judges it, because it is universal, a language everyone speaks without words. The smells change with the seasons. In summer, the air is heavy with hay, with the sweet, dry scent of grass and the faint rot of standing water. Flies hum lazily in the heat. In autumn, the world smells of smoke and damp wood, of fruit beginning to spoil, of soil turning back to mud. Winter brings the sharpness of frost, clean but cruel, a scent that cuts like glass. Spring smells of thaw and promise, wet earth, crushed leaves, the faint sweetness of something growing unseen. Each scent ties you to time, tells you where you are, how long you've been there. You could close your eyes and know the month just by breathing. When you walk through the village, every house tells a story through its sound and scent. The clang of iron marks the blacksmiths, the low hum of voices and smoke from the tavern, the faint crying of a child behind one door, the soft rhythm of spinning behind another. The air is thick with it all, layers upon layers of small lives intersecting. It is not chaos, but chorus, a quiet music made of repetition and routine. You pass through it like a ghost, unnoticed but surrounded, each sound brushing against you, gently before fading away. At night, the senses change again. The world grows smaller. The darkness closes in, muffling sound, sharpening smell. You can hear the fire breathing, the faint scurry of something in the walls, the sigh of the wind under the eaves. The air tastes of ash and damp wool. You touch the wall beside you just to remind yourself that it's still there. The world outside feels endless, but inside everything feels close, almost kind. There is a strange safety in that. The feeling that you could reach out in any direction and touch life itself. You lie there listening, half dreaming, and realize that here the senses are not distractions. They are proof of existence. You are cold because you are alive. You are weary because you are real.
Ow.
You smell the world because it refuses to forget you. Sometimes when the night is stillest, you catch the faintest sound, a distant bell. A dog barking once, the sigh of someone turning in sleep. Each sound feels monumental because it is so rare. The air seems to hold it, stretching it, savoring it. You think of how fragile sound is, how easily it disappears, and how strange it is that something so fleeting can define your whole world. The fire pops softly, startling in the quiet. You close your eyes and listen until even that fades. And when dawn returns again, gray and slow, it doesn't bring silence or noise but balance. The world stirs with 1,000 small sounds. The rustle of straw, the first call of a bird, the creak of a door. You smell smoke, damp wood, cold air. You taste the morning before you even eat, feel the ground solid beneath your feet. You exist in every sense, bound to this place, this time, this endless cycle. You would not last a day here, not because it is cruel, but because it demands to be felt completely. There is no escape from the body, no refuge from the world. Everything touches you, and you must touch it back. There is a strange kind of quiet that follows people in the Middle Ages, not because they lack words, but because words themselves carry weight. And no one wastes them when silence says enough, when a glance replaces a sentence, when the rhythm of shared labor becomes a conversation without sound. The world here moves not on talk, but on understanding, a kind of unspoken language built from gestures, pauses, and the soft awareness of another's presence beside you. The sound of their breath mingling with yours as you work, as you eat, as you simply continue. You feel people's lives pressing near yours, not through touch, but through the constant nearness of being. The walls between you are thin, made of timber and air, so that every cough, every laugh, every murmur of sleep passes through and becomes part of the night's low hum. You are never alone, not truly, and yet loneliness still finds its way in, soft and patient, slipping through the spaces between sounds. There is no privacy, not in the modern sense. You belong to the place as much as to yourself. If someone falls ill, everyone knows it. Someone has gone too long, everyone feels it. Even the absences have their sound. The missing footstep, the empty corner of a table, the unfinished piece of work left in silence. The rhythm of community is slow, deliberate, shaped by need rather than choice. You rise with others and sleep with them, eat with them, labor beside them. The fields are not solitary places. They are gatherings without words, rows of bodies bending and rising, each movement repeating the next like verses of a long ancient prayer. You learn the measure of someone's presence not by what they say, but by how they move, the sound of their shovel, the way their breath breaks rhythm when they tire, the slight pause before they lift again. There is comfort in that sameness, in the shared exhaustion, in knowing that your weariness is not yours alone. No one here pretends strength. The body is too honest for that. When someone falters, another wordlessly takes their place, not out of kindness, but necessity. It's how the world continues, through the seamless exchange of effort, through the unbroken rhythm of hands and hearts working as one. When you walk through the village in the early light, before voices have begun to rise, you can hear the sound of people waking, the slow shuffle of feet, the faint cough of smoke catching fire. Doors open with the same weary creak, and for a brief moment, the whole world breathes in unison. You nod to those you pass, not smiling but acknowledging, and they nod back. It is enough. Connection here does not need conversation. 'Tis in the repetition of days, the shared rituals that define life more than words ever could. A woman hanging linen on a line hums softly, not to entertain, but to keep time with her hands. The baker's door is open, and the smell of bread moves through the air like a promise. Two boys chase each other past the well, their laughter brief and unguarded, breaking the calm before vanishing into the hum of morning. It is a world where everything feels temporary and eternal at once. The laughter fades, the smoke rises, and still the rhythm remains. Evenings are where the sense of togetherness feels most fragile and most profound. After the day's labor, when the air grows cool and the shadows stretch long, people gather not from desire but from instinct, drawn to warmth and company as naturally as the moth to flame. The hearth becomes the center of everything, light, heat, life. Around it, stories drift, though not like the ones you know. They are not told for entertainment, but for remembrance, for the keeping of names and moments that would otherwise be lost. The oldest voices speak slow, their words roughened by smoke and time. And the young listen not because they must, but because silence demands it. Every word feels like it's been used before, polished by repetition, softened by years. You can almost see the stories floating in the air, blending with the fire's smoke, turning into something half real, half imagined. No one interrupts, there's no need. The fire crackles, the wood settles, the night leans close. Even laughter here is quieter, gentler. It comes not from surprise, but from recognition, a small sound that says, "Yes, I know that feeling too." Begin to understand that joy, like grief, does not need to shout to be felt. When someone smiles, it is slow and genuine, something that begins in the eyes before it reaches the mouth. When someone weeps, they do it softly, surrounded by people who do not speak, who simply stay. Because presence itself is the only comfort worth offering. Empathy here is not spoken, it is lived, in the way a bowl of soup is set down beside a tired hand. In the way a cloak is wordlessly shared on a cold night, in the way no one ever asks if you're all right, because they already know. The heart learns to listen differently in this world, to hear what is not said, to understand what silence means. Festivals break the monotony, not as joy, but as relief. When the work pauses, when the fields rest, people gather in the open, and for a few hours, the air changes. The same hands that held tools now hold cups. The same voices that stayed quiet all week now rise in rough song. The music is not polished, it is raw, uneven, carried by the rhythm of feet on dirt and the clapping of hands. The laughter feels almost unfamiliar, like a borrowed sound, but it grows until even the quietest join in. There is something ancient in that sound, something that reaches past exhaustion and touches something like hope. You feel it move through you, loosening the tightness in your chest, making you forget, for a moment, how heavy life can be. When the night ends and the torches fade, the silence that returns is deeper, gentler, touched by the memory of joy. Still, the truth of life here is that it is shared in its simplest form. Work, rest, hunger, warmth, the small comfort of knowing others endure the same. You measure closeness not in words, but in nearness, sitting side by side without speaking, breathing the same smoky air, feeling the same ache in your hands. There are no secrets, not really. The walls are too thin, the lives too intertwined. Even dreams feel communal. Sometimes you wake in the middle of the night and hear another person breathing just beyond the wall. And it steadies you, that quiet proof that you are not the only one awake beneath this heavy, endless sky. In such a world, solitude is rare, and when it comes, it feels almost unnatural. To be alone is to feel the sighs of silence pressing against you, reminding you that the world does not stop when you step away. The fire still burns somewhere else, the voices still rise, the work still continues. You are small here, and the world is vast and unyielding. But perhaps that smallness brings a kind of peace too. There is freedom in not being the center of your own story, in knowing that your existence is part of something larger, older, constant. You are one breath in a chorus that has no beginning and no end. As night deepens and the village fades into a dim scatter of lights, the sound of life softens until it becomes one long, steady murmur. You sit by the embers, the warmth fading, and think of the people you saw today, their faces, their hands, the way they carried themselves. You realize that you know them not by their words, but by their silences, by the small pauses between movements, by the spaces they leave when they walk away. It is in those absences that the truth of connection lives. The modern world, with all its chatter and constant noise, would not understand this quiet, would not survive it. Here, silence is not emptiness, but fullness, a presence that holds you. It teaches you that belonging is not about talking or explaining, but about simply being, breathing the same air, enduring the same cold, waiting for the same dawn. And as you drift towards, sleep surrounded by that shared invisible closeness, you realize why you would not last a day here. Not because it is too harsh, but because it asks too much softness, too much patience, too much surrender to the quiet pulse of life itself. Morning comes without surprise, because it always does, and yet it feels heavier each time, as if the light itself has grown tired of climbing over the horizon. The kind of pale gray that seeps through the cracks in the shutters and settles on the skin before the body is ready to move. And still you move because the day does not ask permission, it demands. The muscles remembering before the mind does, feet sliding into worn shoes, hands searching for tools, breath catching the chill in the air. The ground outside is damp, the mist clinging low, softening everything it touches. And when you breathe it in, it smells of earth, wood smoke, and something faintly sour. The scent of life lived close to the ground. The first sound is always the same. The scrape of metal, the clatter of buckets, the low grunt of an animal waking. And you join that chorus without thinking, because thinking would make the weight of it unbearable. The world here does not pause. It only shifts from one motion to the next, and you follow because there is no other rhythm to belong to. Begin with the simplest things: water to fetch, fire to coax back to life, the same small rituals that define the border between night and day. The bucket handle bites into your palm, the cold biting deeper than the wood, and you feel it all the way to your bones. The path to the well is uneven, the stones slick with dew, and each step reminds you how fragile balance is. The well creaks as the rope lowers, the splash below echoing like a slow heartbeat, and when you haul the water up again, your shoulders burn. Your breath catching on the air that feels too thin. You do not think of comfort here. Comfort is an idea that belongs to another time, another world. Here, survival itself is the closest thing to ease, and even that comes only if you earn it. By the time the sun climbs properly, the fields have begun to stir, figures moving like shadows across the land, slow and steady, their pace measured by necessity rather than choice. You join them, the soil soft beneath your feet, the scent of turned earth thick and alive. The plow is heavy, its wooden frame groaning with each push, and your hands are raw from the roughness of the handles. But you keep going, because stopping would make the ache sharper. The air hums with flies and the low murmur of voices that speak only enough to be heard. Every movement becomes part of the day's rhythm, the lift, the push, the strain, the pause, repeated until it becomes indistinguishable from breathing. You do not count the hours, you count the tasks. How many rows turned, how many bundles stacked, how many times your back straightens before bending again. The body learns to surrender to repetition, and in that surrender, something close to peace begins to form. Not joy, not pride, but acceptance. A kind of quiet understanding that the earth will always demand, and you will always answer. The heat comes slow but steady, turning the damp morning into a haze that presses against the skin. The sweat mixing with dirt until you cannot tell which is which. Your throat dries, but you keep working, because everyone else does, and no one speaks of thirst. When someone falters, the others do not stop. They shift slightly, close the gap, and the rhythm continues. The world does not wait for weakness. The same song hums in your ears, the scrape of tools, the creak of leather, the steady crunch of footsteps in the soil. There is something strangely comforting in that sameness, the predictability of exhaustion, the certainty that each day will ask the same and give the same. The pain in your hands becomes part of the pattern, as familiar as the taste of bread or the sound of rain on the roof at night. When you pause, it is not rest but reprieve, a brief suspension of movement rather than an escape from it. You sit on the edge of the field, the air shimmering above the ground, and look out over the land that owns you. It stretches endlessly, a patchwork of brown and green cut through by lines of fences and hedges that seem to lead nowhere. The horizon itself feels tired. You eat quickly, the bread coarse and dry, the cheese hard at the edges, but it fills the space where hunger was, and that is enough. Conversation is scarce. Words waste energy. The only sound is chewing, the quiet clink of a knife, the faint hum of insects that never seem to leave. You close your eyes for a moment, but even then, the body does not rest. The muscles twitch, the heartbeat thuds heavy, the breath stays shallow. You realize that rest here is not the absence of labor. It is simply the pause between one strain and the next. The afternoon brings a different kind of heaviness. The shadows shorten, the sun burns low, and the ground hardens underfoot. Each step feels heavier than the last. The body moves on instinct now, the mind dulled by repetition. You begin to see the world differently, not as scenery, but as texture. The roughness of rope, the sting of straw against skin, the metallic taste of sweat. You smell everything, iron, soil, smoke, and each scent becomes a memory. A marker of time passing even when nothing changes. Occasionally, you hear laughter, brief and startling, breaking the monotony like a spark in dry grass, and then it fades, swallowed by the labor that waits. There is beauty here, but it hides in strange places, in the curve of a field just plowed, in the shimmer of heat above a thatched roof, in the sound of someone humming a tune without words. Evening comes without triumph, only completion. The tools are set aside, the animals led back, the ground left to rest in silence. Your back feels as though it no longer belongs to you, your hands trembling slightly as you wash them in cold water that turns brown almost instantly. The air cools again, the heat retreating, replaced by a chill that settles into the bones. The walk home feels longer than the walk there, though the distance is the same. You move slower now, the weight of the day pulling at each step. The light fades, and with it, the sense of separation between things, the fields, the houses, the sky. They all blur together into one dim, endless shape. At home, the fire waits, though it takes time to catch. The smoke fills the small space before escaping through the roof, the scent sharp but familiar. You eat again, the same meal as before, because variety is a luxury no one expects. The warmth of food spreads slowly, easing the tightness in your chest. Around you, others do the same, their faces marked by the same dull fatigue. There is little talk, only the occasional murmur, the clatter of bowls, the sigh of a body easing into stillness. The day's work lingers in every movement, in the way someone rubs their wrist or leans too long against the table. You begin to realize that exhaustion itself is the only constant companion here. It softens you, humbles you, keeps you tethered to the earth in a way that feels almost sacred. When you finally lie down, the straw rustles beneath you. The rough fabric of the blanket scratching your skin, but it doesn't matter. Body sinks, grateful for the weight of stillness. The sounds outside fade into one another, a distant bark, the sigh of wind through cracks in the wall, the faint rhythm of someone breathing nearby. You think for a moment of how many days have been lived this way, how many lives shaped by the same endless labor, and the thought both comforts and frightens you. You close your eyes, and the world fades not into dreams, but into a kind of deep, wordless quiet, where even thought grows too heavy to lift. And as sleep takes you, you understand the truth of this life, that it was never meant to be conquered or survived. It's only endured one day at a time, until endurance itself became the only story worth telling. Night in the medieval world does not fall quickly. It seeps slow and inevitable, like water into cloth, the light fading not all at once, but in careful degrees, the colors draining from the world until only gray remains, then shadow, then something deeper still. The air cools faster than you expect, the warmth of the day retreating like a tide, leaving behind a stillness so sharp it feels like a sound. The last smoke from hearths drifts upward, thin and silver, catching the last hints of dusk before vanishing into the growing dark. The smell of ash lingers, clinging to the air, a reminder that life, however faint, still burns somewhere close. You walk slowly, your breath visible in small, uneven clouds, each one dissolving before it can rise far. The road beneath your feet is hard, frozen in places, the dirt stiff with frost. There are no lights, not really, only the moon, and even that hides behind thin clouds, pale and uncertain, offering just enough to shape outlines from the dark. The houses are quiet, their windows small, faint glimmers of firelight flickering like distant stars. You hear nothing at first, and then slowly, sounds emerge from the stillness. The groan of wood as it cools, the faint rustle of straw shifting. A distant dog barking once, then twice, before silence returns. It is in that silence that the weight of night truly settles. The kind of quiet that does not soothe but presses, thick and unmoving, as if the air itself has grown heavy. You feel it on your skin, in your lungs, in the space between heartbeats. The world seems to pause, waiting. The villagers retreat into their small wooden shelters, doors latched, fires fed every flame, guarded carefully because darkness here is not just absence of light. It is alive, it has presence, a texture that moves through the air, whispering through cracks, slipping under doors. You hear it sometimes, not a voice, not words, but the faint hum of emptiness itself, a reminder that the night belongs to no one. Inside the homes, the fire glows low, throwing red shapes on rough walls, the shadows moving slow and uncertain, stretching like they too are tired. You sit near the embers, the heat weak but welcome. The room smells of smoke and wool and damp wood. Every sound feels louder in the stillness. The slow pop of burning ash, the creak of a beam settling, the distant sigh of someone turning in sleep. There are no clocks, no sense of hours. Time is measured by the fire's fading, by how often you need to feed it to keep the cold from settling in your bones. Outside, frost gathers quietly, the world turning silver under the thin light of the moon. You imagine the fields lying still, every blade of grass brittle, the rivers hardened at their edges. The animals are silent too, breath steaming in the cold, their movements slow, resigned. The wind, when it comes, does not howl, it whispers, brushing against the walls with a sound like someone sighing. You might think the dark would bring fear, but here, fear has long since become something ordinary, something folded into the rhythm of life like hunger or cold. It is not a sharp thing, not panic. It is a dull knowing that the night is stronger than you, that it has seen more lives pass than you could imagine. You can feel it, that vastness, pressing at the edges of your small firelit world. It makes you shrink inward, not from cowardice, but from instinct. You stay close to the warmth, watching the flames move, letting their quiet dance fill your vision. Sometimes you see faces in the fire, or think you do, not ghosts, not spirits, just tricks of the light, fragments of imagination given form by fatigue. The mind plays softly in the quiet, finding patterns in the flicker, meaning in the random. Outside, the frost deepens, spreading across wood and stone, coating everything with a thin, glimmering skin. The stars emerge, sharp and countless, far colder than they look. There is beauty in it, terrible, endless beauty, the kind that does not care if you witness it. You step out for a moment, the cold biting instantly, the air so sharp it steals your breath. Your footsteps crunch in the frost, the sound startling in its clarity. You look toward the horizon, but there is nothing to see, only darkness pressed against more darkness. The village sleeps. Faint column of smoke rises from a chimney, twisting gently before it disappears. Somewhere a horse shifts, the sound low and heavy. The silence that follows feels even deeper. You realize standing there how fragile your warmth is, how thin the line is between safety and the dark. The walls of the house are not thick. The fire will not last forever. The night could take it all if it wished, but it doesn't, not tonight. There's something ancient about that realization, something humbling. The dark is not your enemy. It simply is. It was here before, it will be here after. You are a guest, and you must behave as one. You step back inside, closing the door softly behind you, the wood rough under your fingers. The small room feels warmer now, though you know it hasn't changed. It's only the memory of cold that makes the air seem kind. You lie down on the rough bedding, listening. The others sleep, their breathing uneven, slow. You can hear the faint crackle of the last coals, the whisper of wind through a gap in the wall. Occasionally something moves, the scurry of a mouse, the soft thump of a log shifting in the hearth. Each sound feels enormous in the quiet, yet comforting to proof that the world still moves, that you are not entirely alone. Pull the blanket tighter, the fabric coarse against your skin. The cold settles on your face, and you turn toward the faint warmth, half awake, half dreaming. As the night deepens, the fire dies down to a glow, red and trembling, and the dark fills the room like water, soft and complete. The silence grows until it feels alive, breathing with you, around you. We think, just before sleep takes you, that this must be what eternity feels like, not endless light, but endless stillness, the slow pulse of a world that does not care, yet somehow holds you all the same. And when the morning finally comes, it feels less like awakening and more like release, as if the night had been holding you in its quiet hands. And only now, let's go. Sleep in the medieval world does not come like a curtain falling, but like a slow fading, a drifting down into warmth that never quite erases the ache of the day, and in that dim place between waking and not, the mind begins to wander. Replaying the rhythms of work in softer tones, the sound of the plow becomes the slow sigh of wind, the murmur of voices in the fields turns into distant water, and faces blur until they are only outlines moving gently through the dark, the body remembering even as it forgets. There is no clear edge to dream here.
Ow.
It begins before the eyes close, shaped by hunger, by the flicker of the dying fire, by the small noises that never stop the mouse, the shifting wood, the far-off bark that could be a dog or something else. You see the room as though through water, the shapes of those beside you glowing faintly with breath, and then you are elsewhere, walking again, the same field stretching out. But endless now, the same path leading nowhere. The same sense of effort without progress, yet in the dream it no longer hurts. The weight lifts, the soil turns itself. The sky bends low and close. Dreams here are not stories, they are continuations. The baker still kneads, the shepherd still watches, the child still runs through grass that never ends. Sometimes you dream of warmth, of a fire that never dies, or of food enough that no one eats quickly. Sometimes you dream of silence so complete that even thought rests. And sometimes the dreams are strange, a voice calling your name, though no one speaks it. The feel of rain on skin, though the roof holds, a face you know, but cannot place. In the world of sleep, time loosens. Morning and memory blur. When you stir, half awake, the cold greets you first, the same unchanging air, and for a moment you cannot tell if you are still dreaming. The coals glow faintly, the same red as behind your eyelids, and you lie still, unwilling to disturb the fragile balance between the two worlds. You turn on your side, the straw beneath you crackling softly, and listen to the breathing of others in the room, uneven and human, some deep with exhaustion, some quick and shallow, the rhythm of a shared life stretched thin over the dark. The air smells of smoke, wool, and the faint sourness of labor. Somewhere in the corner, someone murmurs in their sleep. A word that means nothing now, the ghost of a memory already fading. The rafters above seem impossibly high, lost in shadow, and in that emptiness, your mind begins to build small shapes of meaning. A glimmer like a star, a pattern in the wood that looks like an eye, the illusion of movement in still air. Sleep deepens, but never fully takes you. The medieval night is not silent, it breathes. You feel the wood shift as it cools, hear the far hum of wind through narrow cracks. The scurry of a rat in search of crumbs, the slow groan of the world turning somewhere beyond your reach. And then there is a strange calm, the kind that does not belong to rest, but to surrender. The cold is a kind of company now. You do not resist it, only drift with it. Dreams open like doors left ajar. You walk through one and find yourself standing in a church with no walls, or in a field covered in frost that glows faintly under a moon too large to be real. There are faces, familiar and not, and they do not speak, only look at you with the gentle understanding of things that have already passed. Sometimes there is music faint, uneven, as if played from far beneath the earth. It is not joyful or sad, only inevitable. You sleep as they once did, without knowing where one dream ends or another begins. And in that endlessness, time loses its sharp edges. Morning will come, but not yet. And even when it does, it will arrive quietly, creeping through cracks, turning the dark into gray. For now you float between heartbeat and silence, the weight of the blanket a tether to a world that feels centuries away in the thought. Comes to you not spoken, not formed, that perhaps this is what all lives share: the pause, the waiting, the quiet rhythm that hums beneath everything. You are neither awake nor asleep, neither here nor gone. You are simply still.
Dawn arrives not with fanfare, but as a subtle shift, a slow lightening at the edges of the sky that presses gently against the dark, turning shadow into shape and shape into something tangible yet still distant, the world unfolding reluctantly as if it too resists leaving the quiet stillness of night, and you lie beneath your blanket half conscious, aware of the change without moving your body heavy with the memory of labor and the faint ache of sleep that has never been fully restful. The cold still sharp at your face, the straw beneath you rough and unyielding, the scent of smoke lingering, softened by hours of darkness. And somewhere in the room the others stir, quietly, their breathing changing. Small shifts in the weight of bodies that tell you life is returning without urgency. Without demand, only through necessity, the rhythm of living resuming like a tide that has waited for no one, and the faint noises of the village begin again, the clatter of a pail, the creak of a door, a soft cough, the rustle of straw, and it all merges with the slow clarity of morning until the world feels present again. The edges sharp, the air tangible, cold, and yet carrying the faint warmth of the earth slowly waking, and you stretch, feeling every muscle, every ache, every lingering stiffness from yesterday's work, knowing the weight will not lift but will carry into the next day. A reminder that life here is measured not in hours or triumphs, but in endurance. The same rhythm that has governed centuries before, and you rise slowly as though the movement itself is a negotiation, each step careful on the frost-hardened floor, the cold biting at your fingers and toes, and you draw the blanket tighter one last time before letting it fall, feeling the texture against your skin as a quiet companion, a boundary between you and the vastness beyond. And outside the window, the pale light shifts further, revealing outlines of buildings, the curve of a well, the fence posts that border fields, every detail softened by the lingering mist, the world holding its breath as it transitions from dark to light, and you inhale the cold air, tasting the remnants of night, frost, smoke. Earth, the memory of darkness, still clinging to every sense. And you step lightly toward the hearth, the coals almost cold, a final echo of the fire that burned through the long night. And as you poke them gently, the scent of warmth rises, filling the small space, mingling with the heavy smell of wool, wood, and sweat, and you realize the world is both harsh and gentle in ways you could not have imagined, that the day ahead will demand everything, that the labor of hands and back will continue without pause, and yet there is a strange beauty in it. In the weight and rhythm of existence, the way the senses sharpen in cold, the way every sound, every motion, every breath is magnified in the quiet hours, teaching lessons not in knowledge, but in survival, endurance, and the simple, unspoken communion with others who share the same space, the same time, the same effort, and you watch the others begin to move, stretching, murmuring softly, pulling garments over chilled skin, their faces pale in the dawn, and the world hums low, a constant undertone of life and routine that carries you forward whether you will it or not, and you join the flow. Drawing water, stoking the fire, preparing food, feeling each action not as task but as testament to the continuity of living. The same motions repeated through centuries, each small gesture a mark of persistence. And outside, the wind stirs, carrying the faint scent of the fields. The animals, the slow awakening of a village that has known this rhythm for generations. The frost beginning to melt under the soft, unhurried light, and you breathe it all in, letting the cold and warmth, the scents and sounds, the memory of night and the promise of day settle deep inside, marking the end of one cycle and the quiet beginning of the next. And though you know you would not last a day here without yielding to exhaustion, without surrendering to the relentless demands of body and earth, you also feel the strange serenity of knowing that life moves on regardless, that dawn always comes, that the senses, the labor, the closeness, the silence, the breath, and the cold are the truest measure of existence, and as the sun rises softening edges, illuminating smoke and frost alike, you walk into the day carrying all of it with you, aware that this is the rhythm of medieval life. Harsh yet intimate, exhausting yet mesmerizing, a world that asks everything and gives only the subtle, persistent proof that you are alive, present, and part of something older than yourself. And, as the village hums gently around you, the animals stir, the wind whispers, the fire crackles, and the light shifts ever so slightly, you know in the marrow of your bones that here in this unbroken chain of days and nights you would survive only if you surrendered completely to the rhythm, to the cold, to the quiet, to the tireless pulse of life that has always moved in this slow, unrelenting, beautiful way.